Traders, how are you? Marcello, founder of the Day Trading Academy. Today, we're going to be doing the recap of what happened in the markets last week. Overall, we had a similar situation. We have good economic news, but then obviously the reimposition of the quarantine and the closures for the COVID-19 are starting to affect not only the markets, but also the perception of what the markets may do in the future. So we have a situation where, we've had that huge rocket ship since March, mainly due to the government stimulus and the literal printing of money of the U.S. government. And we have a situation now where it's not really going up as high anymore, as fast. So I think we may be around the top of the market, or at least we're not going to be going as high, as fast anymore. Overall on market, we had Monday, we had a situation where the market ended up higher, but went negative due to the rising cases in the coronavirus. And in addition to that, California also reinstituting the business shutdowns. I don't know if you know this, but California on its own is the 5th largest economy in the world. Just imagine that for a moment. Bigger than the UK. It overtook the UK recently. Bigger than France. Bigger than a lot of other countries. It's literally the United States, China, Japan, and then Germany, and then what would be on its own, California. So it's huge news not only for the world economy, but also for the U.S. economy and the recovery as well. Tuesday we ended higher. The likelihood of the vaccine coming in 2020 sparks a market rally. On Wednesday we went higher as well. Goldman Sachs, which is one of the most important financial institutions in the U.S. I don't know if you guys knew this either, but the executives, the people at the head of Goldman Sachs, literally it's like a winding staircase, just an open door where they go to the Fed, which is the central bank in the United States, and then back to Goldman Sachs, and then to the Fed. So a lot of these people in powerful positions at Goldman Sachs actually go to the central bank, which I would say is one of the most important positions in the U.S., and then literally back to Goldman Sachs. It's just like a little round table, good old corruption. Other than that, Wednesday, we did go higher because of that. And in addition to that, the S&P went to a 5-week high. It's about 6% off of its all-time high. And we had more news about the promising vaccine for the COVID-19. Thursday, we had U.S. stocks going lower. Friday, we ended up mixed. A lot of investors were reviewing the situation with a potential second stimulus, what the Republicans want to pass with, what's the easiest way to say this? Not anonymity. I always do the Spanish videos first, and now I think it's Spanish when I do these videos. They want to grant clemency, not clemency. They want to make sure that we can open the economy without giving people the ability to sue companies, whether that's employees or clients. So they want to kind of shield the economy, let's say, to protection from lawsuits, so we can go back to normal again. That's what they want to do. Other than that, obviously we had the fear of the business disruptions due to the record rise in the COVID-19 cases. I actually read 2 reports this week that we had a situation where a motorcyclist that died in a motorcycle accident was confirmed to be known as the death of coronavirus. So he died because of a motorcycle accident, but they actually marked him as a corona case, so a coronavirus death. And the second thing I heard as well is that Trump, the White House, is asking the HHS, which is another one of these government entities, to send the corona numbers directly to the White House because they feel that the CDC is actually increasing or changing the numbers. A lot of health clinics also in Florida were reported to have 100% cases in the test that went out. A lot of, there was a case as well, and I just keep going with all these news reports, but basically, it may not be as bad as we thought it originally was, essentially, because, the mortality rate or the percentage of people living that catch the virus is 99.6 in the US, 99.9 in 99.96, and then in the world it's 99.9. 0.99 if I'm not mistaken. If you guys find different numbers or changes over time, go ahead and mark it there in the comments. I'll read that. U.S. stocks overall for the week, the Dow went up 2.28%. It's still down 6.54% for 2020. The S&P 500 went up 1.24%, still down 0.19 for the year. And the NASDAQ went down 1.08% for the week and up 17.06% of the year. If you like the videos, I do them completely free for you to be able to go ahead and learn how all the things happen. I don't want to get political because obviously I think most of us are tired of that. But if you do like the videos, go ahead and leave your like there on YouTube or Instagram, depending on where you're watching it. It helps a lot with the algorithm, and obviously I love it if you... Other than that, in European markets, mostly higher. Istanbul was the big winner in all of Europe, 3.46 positive. Latin American was mostly higher. The Merval in Argentina was the biggest winner at 6.38%. And Africa and the Middle East, Egypt was the biggest loser at 4.94%. And the other markets that were mostly positive or under 1% was Saudi Arabia and also South Africa. In the Far East and Asia and Australia, the SEC in China was the biggest loser at 5.26%, and then the Kospi in South Korea was up 2.36%, while the Philippines was down 1.78%. Bitcoin and crypto news still has not had the big surge that a lot of analysts were calling for after the halving, which reduces the supply of Bitcoins. It ended at 9,151.10 cents overall this week, down 1.39% for the week. Finance and banking news, U.S. consumer prices increased by their most in nearly 8 years in June as the businesses reopen. So obviously that would report that kind of number, right? Driven mostly by rising gas prices and also food prices. The consumer price index increased 0.6% last month, biggest gain since August 2012 after easing went negative 0.1% in May. The underlying trend, however, basically means that even though the prices are rising, right, even though the consumer price index is rising, which essentially means that the prices of stuff that we buy are rising, we still don't have a significant an uptrend in inflation. Now, inflation is bad for you and I because we go out and buy stuff, and every year, every week, there might be a higher price. But the government wants inflation, so this is allowing the government to continue to pump the money into the economy and the stock market to make the markets go up. Large U.S. banks have put aside $52 billion to prepare themselves for further losses this year. Short-term reversals and also slowdowns in businesses reopenings could cause various U.S. states to force lenders to remain very cautious. Tuesday, largest bank in the United States, JP Morgan Chase, reported Q2 earnings, beating analyst revenue and also profit forecasts. They're reflecting strong gains in the corporate and investment banks division, and the net income went up to $4.69 billion from, and the estimated was 3.27. So they made a lot of money. Citigroup posted a 73% plunge in quarterly profit as well. The report, the article that I read actually said they eked out a profit of $1.32 billion. 1.32 eked, just a little profit. Now that is compared to $4.8 billion last year, so that's definitely a big difference. Wells Fargo swung a Q2 loss of $2.4 billion. It's the first loss since the Q4 of 2008. They've had obviously those scandals about opening up accounts that weren't really real, and they had to cover potential loan losses and also slash their dividend, of which, remember that Warren Buffett is invested heavily in Wells Fargo. I don't know if you guys remember last year, I stated that a lot of the decisions that Warren Buffett would be making probably aren't going to be the best decisions, and that's one of them. His actual portfolio is 43% Apple. So everything that he owns, 43% of the money he has invested is in Apple stock, which I don't think is a good idea either. Apple stock is great, but not 43% of the bajillion dollars that you have. Commodities, oil futures climbed this week to the highest prices in over 4 months. We had a biggest weekly decline in U.S. crude supplies, and also OPEC agreed to a 2 million barrel per day cut in production. Now that's since the economy started to open again, there was a lot of good signs about the oil market as well. Overall for the week, U.S. crude went up 0.09% to $40.59. It's still down 33.72% in 2020. And international Brent is down 0.23%. For the week, it's at $43.14, even though it's down just under 35% for the year. Precious metals booming. I don't know if you guys remember, I talked a lot about the investment in the precious metals over the last few years. So remember, only for educational purposes. We're not trading advisors. We don't trade people's money, but I did talk about it, and I did call that. I don't know if you guys remember, I uploaded a video here on YouTube about a $40,000 loss that I had open as well. That all recovered to a really nice gain, which was great, and I actually closed all my positions for a profit. There was a historic high for gold, if you guys don't remember, in 2011 of 1,921. Gold is now up 0.80% for the week at 1,811.30. That's what it went up to that point. For the week overall, it's up 0.65% to 1811. Silver went up even higher than that, 3.64% to $19.43. And the high of, this is actually very interesting, the high of silver a lot of people referred to in 2011 of $48.48. This is when we had that huge rise because of the 2008-2009 crisis. Well, silver was actually at $49.45 in January of 1980. And if you look at the amount of what $49.45 would be in today's dollars due to inflation, it's over, if I'm not mistaken, $160. So this is why I've been focused so much on silver rather than gold, because we've already had now two situations when things go bad or when there's a crisis where we've seen these precious metals surge, and this might be the beginning of the next rise as well. Other than that, in political news, Polish president, I'm going to absolutely butcher his name, Andrzej Duda, Andrzej Duda, I think it is, won another 5 years in power on a socially conservative and religious platform. Saturday, Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison sought to postpone the early August sitting of Parliament, citing coronavirus. He's stating that it's really too risky. U.S. economic news, the industrial production in the United States rose 5.4% in June, the second gain after a steep drop in March and April. Economists were forecasting 4.1% gain in May's output, which came in at 1.4%. And other than that, we still have an overall down. We're still overall down in industrial production at about 10.9%, but we're starting to recover, even though we've had the largest quarterly decline since right at the end of World War II. U.S. retail sales, which is important for the economy. Remember, almost 70% of the economy in the U.S. is actually consumerism, us going out and buying stuff. Retail sales increased by more than expected in June. Again, it's due to the reopening of all the stores in the economy. Analysts forecasted 5%. It actually was at 7.5%. It jumped 18.2% in May, which was the biggest gain since the government kept track of it in 1992. And the IMF is forecasting that the U.S. economy, the largest still globally, is expected to shrink by 6.6% in 2020, obviously due to the coronavirus pandemic. But they say that if we have a second round of the coronavirus and we have more closures, then it's probably going to be even worse, including the situation that government has gotten bigger, the debt load has also gotten bigger as well. The UK Office for Budget Responsibility is saying that the British economy may shrink by over 14% in 2020. This is actually the worst result in over 300 years. They're stating that it's going to be lasting damage due to the coronavirus. It's pushed the government to borrow nearly $500 billion, which is between about 13 to 21%, lifting the debt to GDP ratio of the UK to over 100%. And I don't know if you guys know this or not, but anytime a country gets to 100%, it's all downhill from there. In Russia, Q2 real disposable income plunged 8% in year-over-year terms, which is the most in 20 years. The economy has shrunk by 9.6%. obviously due to the situation with the oil crash and also due to the coronavirus pandemic. In corporate news, nearly 1/3 of more than 40 large companies seeking U.S. bankruptcy protection have awarded millions of dollars in bonuses to executives before they actually enter bankruptcy. This, to me, should not happen because obviously they're going to let go a lot of employees, but they're not getting bonuses, right? So they actually do that right before they go into bankruptcy due to the fact that after a bankruptcy law that was issued in 2005, it's very strict for executives to get bonuses. Very, very few exceptions when you enter bankruptcy court. Early Monday, Tesla shares surged to over 15% to $1,750 a share. The market cap is now approaching $300 billion, and they're going to be eligible to get into the S&P 500 once they have 4 consecutive quarters of profitability, which they're close to doing. A feat many investors expect when its Q2 earnings are released later this month. The shares are up 321.14% in 2020. Delta Airlines, not in a good direction. They lost a total of $5.7 billion in Q2. Their revenue plunged 91%. Due to the fact that due to the reimposition of the coronavirus quarantine, their summer travel plans, the revenue is down 20 to 25% of what it should be. Netflix shares tumbled 6.52% on Friday to below $500 a share again, shedding as much as $19 billion in market valuation, which at one point wiped out the large portion of the gains last month. They did add, however, 10.1 million new subscribers in Q2, but they do see growth slowing. In technology, NASA's astronauts that went to the International Space Station with SpaceX crew in May, which was the first private launch with astronauts inside to space, are now expected to return to Earth on August 2nd after spending almost 2 months in orbit. NASA awarded nearly $8 billion between SpaceX and Boeing to be able to develop their rocket systems, which obviously rival each other. UAE, United Arab Emirates, which is where Dubai is. If you guys don't know where that is, it's in the Middle East. They are launching a mission to Mars on July 20th. It's been delayed twice due to weather, but essentially they want to be able to send a probe up to make a seven-month journey to Mars before orbiting the planet and sending back data about the atmosphere, which is really interesting. In investment news, U.S. home building, here we go. U.S. home building has increased by the most in 4 years in June. Housing starts have increased 17.3% to the seasonal adjusted annual rate of about 1.186 million units last month. There's a rising demand in the suburbs due to the fact now that companies are now allowing their employees the flexibility to work from home. This is one of the reasons that I believe that things aren't going to go back to normal. It's going to be a new normal, like after 9/11. Before you used to be able to walk into a building or even up to the gate at the airport. Now you need to get checked. It's probably going to be something similar. And now I think that a lot more companies are starting to realize they don't have to have these huge budgets to spend money in these office complexes, and they can just have their workers work from home. Another thing that's actually helped the housing market as well, record low mortgages did to a new low of 2.98%, the first time in 50 years. BlackRock, which is the world's largest asset manager, their bond funds reported a 21% in Q2. Investors poured money into its fixed income funds and cash management services due to the global financial markets rebounding strongly from the COVID-sparked sell-off in March. It ended up with $7.32 trillion under management from $6.84 billion. Their net income rose to $1.21 billion. And I mentioned about the new stimulus bill that began on Friday as Republicans to try to put the final touches on the bill that's going to try to allow businesses to reopen with protections against lawsuits from the COVID. And each international events, global Infections of the coronavirus have reached 13 million on Monday. Casualties is 500,000 in 7 months. It took just 5 days to climb from 12 million to 13 million. That was reported on July 8th. And part of the increase is due to more testing. Americans account for 50% of the world's infections and half of the deaths. And there's an acceleration as well now in Latin America. The fastest acceleration is down there. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, top coalition partner, and ex-general Benny Gantz wants Israel to shelve the planning of the annexations of the West Bank and instead focus on improving collaboration initiatives for new Jewish settlers and also Palestinians. But Netanyahu may actually decide to move forward regardless. And in unusual facts this week, only person globally whose net worth increased more than the richest man in the world, Jeff Bezos, since the coronavirus is the CEO of Tesla, Elon Musk. He started the year off with 115 billion net worth, and today he's worth 190 billion. That's 75 billion increase in wealth in a little over 6 months. It's crazy. Twitter disclosed that hackers hacked and targeted about 130 accounts during a cyber attack this week. They actually got a lot of high-profile organizations and celebrities. There was a message saying that they should donate to a certain wallet, and they got about $100,000 worth of crypto. Some analysts are theorizing that it's a trial run for something in the future. Queen Elizabeth II, at 94 years old, knighted a 100-year-old World War II veteran, Captain Tom Moore. He became a national celebrity when he raised almost $40 million by walking laps around his home to raise money for the UK Health Service. Now, UK, if you don't know, has a government health service. I wonder why they have to raise money for that. It should be run well by the government, no? Other than that, the historic National Mont de Piedad building in Mexico City, covering low-interest pawn loans, turns out to be an unearthing of the site of the remains of the palace constructed for the Aztec ruler Axayactl. It later became home to the Spanish conquistador Hernán Cortés. And according to a landmark case in the U.S. Supreme Court, about 50% of the state of Oklahoma is actually Native American land and has been for over 150 years, which basically means that in a lot of the governmental organization of the state, the ownership of a lot of land actually hasn't turned hands and gone to Indians, but a decision is undoubtedly going to have large-scale consequences of how things are going to be run there in Oklahoma. That's the news for this week, guys. Let me know if you guys have any questions. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to hit the like button there on YouTube. Helps a lot with the algorithm, and we'll see you next week.